Hello? Can everybody hear me? With them, everybody settle down, please. Is is this mic fine? Too loud? Too low? Everything's good. All right. Let's see. And here we go. All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the first lecture of the Rails Decal. Woo! All right. So first off, I know earlier this week when I handed out the CCNs, a lot of you guys had a lot of trouble actually signing up for the class. I don't know if you saw the email or not, but what had happened was over the summer when we first made the class, they accidentally stopped the enrollment for one of the sections. So one of the CCNs actually didn't work. Only like 2 people got in the class and there was like a wait list of size 7. But I'm pretty sure we got that all resolved. Just, I guess, a quick show of hands. Is anybody in this class right now who got the acceptance letter in the email and still has trouble enrolling with their CCN? Okay, that's just a small number of you. So for each of you guys, just come to me after class and just, we'll try to work everything out. Another thing is, for everybody who's enrolled in this class, is there anybody who hasn't been added to the piazza for this class? All right, also come talk to me after the lecture and we'll get that resolved. I would first want to talk about the history of this class, or like basically why we have the Ruby on Rails decal. So 3 semesters ago, me, there's Sam's is the original person, and my old 61 ATA, we all were like, oh, guys that did Rails, right? And it's a skill that we learned outside of all this class that we take, like 61A, 61B, 61C. And we thought it was such a useful skill that we wanted to share it with the Berkeley community. We've done it since fall of last year. So, we did our first set of lectures. We kind of figured out what went well, what didn't. We tried to improve on that for the second semester. And now, hopefully, time 3 is a charm, guys. And you get the best experience ever. Just to note, me, Sam, and my old 61 ATA, his name is Mark. We all were part of Blueprint, and we were able to get them to sponsor us by hosting the website where you guys signed up to be a part of this decal, and it's probably where you're going to turn in all your assignments. Another part of a little bit of what I was saying earlier was this kind of like class versus what's actually done in practice. So like 61A, 61B, in case you guys didn't know, Berkeley is very theory focused, right? What are the fundamentals of CS? And I do believe that's really important, right? Just life is a lot more interesting actually understanding what's happening underneath all this stuff that's within our computers. But then what we wanted to provide was a class that, okay, you get this set of knowledge, we can make a product or just some tangible thing out of it that people can use. And then what a lot of people want to learn is how to build a website. And the most common way to do this or learn these kind of skills is actually, or at least from all the people I know, is just Google searching. How do I build a website? How do I use Rails? Or how do I build an Android application? How do I use the Django Python framework? What we wanted instead was to actually create a very structured system, because some people might learn better in that environment and other people might learn better in sort of this class. You get grades for it and it happens in a very timely manner. All right, I just want to do some quick polls for this class. How many people actually have experience making a website that has a database it changes with users, just raise your hand right now. So there's a good number of you. How many of you guys only had experience making websites that are just like, oh, HTML, CSS, JavaScript doesn't interact with the database, but like you have something that kind of presents like your personal, like a personal website? All right, that's a good number of you. And how many guys in here actually have like no experience at any of this internet kind of stuff? Okay, that's also a good number of you. What we were trying to aim for in this class was to kind of have this breadth of experience. And just to let you guys know right now that we tried to design this class to tailor to all kinds of levels of experience. So if you feel like you barely know any computer science, that's totally fine. And if you feel like you know everything, hopefully we'll teach you a very interesting and useful skill. Oh wait, actually, quick question. How many of you guys in here are freshmen? Like this is your first semester of college? Okay, that's a good number of you. All right, so I just wanted to go over what I mean by like a static website in case you guys have no experience whatsoever. I'm gonna paste this link on my presentation, go to this URL, and bam, this is one of my friend's old websites, right? It's called it's onboard.io, and one of the many things that this website does, it basically presents us with a lot of information, right? But you know, there's no users on this website. For every single person here, if you go to that URL, you will see the same thing. But when I talk about like a dynamic website, right? An example would be the Rails decal. So I'm actually going to start by being logged out, right? So when I'm logged out, I am like a nobody to this website. I'm just an anonymous person, and this is all the information that this page is mostly the same, right? And this is my current nav bar. But when I sign in, use GitHub, right? Within our database, I'm a user in our database, right? It finds me and it changes the website. Now it gives me the ability to apply because of account. So this website actually changed based on a different type of user interaction. And for most of you who basically signed up for this class, you've been through this whole apply button and all that stuff, right? Which we'll call it. But then like this website allows different types of users. For example, since I'm an admin on this website, you go to a website right now and click on the top right, you will see the ability to look at your profile, right? But I'm probably the only person here that can see this whole admin dashboard. And that's what we're going to try to teach you to build. Just the ability to have different sets of information show up for different users. Okay, going back. Let's see. So a static website is basically what it does is you have content, you present it, and you can interact with it. And the content is generated by HTML5, which HTML5 stands for Hypertext Markup Language, where you just basically write out things that pretty much don't change. CSS is the styling that's put on top of it. So it gives you the size of everything, or what color your box is, or if you want to make it a circle, all that kind of stuff. JavaScript is another language that you basically write, that's very common in the web. You write it, and your browser is able to run it. And with this JavaScript code, it allows you to kind of interact with objects and do cool animations and stuff like that. So with a dynamic web page, like I said before, it has all the same components as a static web page, but when I sign in, for example, I get something completely different. Like the picture I have up there is Facebook. You can't really use Facebook unless you sign in. That's what you see on Facebook.com if you're not logged in. But once you actually sign in to Facebook, it changes to a news feed that is very tailored to you and your interests and whatever information they grab from you, and figure out how to sell you ads and all that kind of stuff to make money. All right, so as a broad overview, what do we need to make a web application. First, we need a way to store data. When you store data, you're able to like store with the user's information, pictures, posts, stuff like that to present. The image up there is Postgres. It's basically a type of database that people use. There's other ones like MySQL. Some people really like these NoSQL things like MongoDB. Most likely, for the extent of this decal, you're just going to use a database called SQLite, and it's literally just a kind of a text file. But you don't have to worry about that. The next thing that you need for your web application is ways to interact with the data. And your web app, your Rails application, basically controls all that logic. Like if a person goes to /signin, right? Your Rails application will do a bunch of logic and figure out, okay, this is this is logic I have to do before, and this is what I'm going to present. And in the end, your Rails application will create HTML5 and CSS and send it to your browser. And that's the last part. Once your browser gets it, it's a way to present it. Your browser figures out how to present the information that was sent to you. The way we're going to implement all of that is basically Ruby on Rails. Ruby on Rails is a framework that handles your database, how to interact with your data. It handles all your logic, and it generates the views for you. But what does Ruby on Rails even mean? So the Ruby part of it talks about a programming language. So what I mean by this is when someone says Ruby on, they say like Python, right? That is a programming language. Java is a programming language, right? But Ruby on Rails is not a programming language. Ruby is a programming language. What Ruby on Rails is like a library that they built using Ruby. So, and it's most commonly referred to as, like, when people say Rails, they're talking about Ruby on Rails. It's very similar to Python. How many of you guys have, have taken classes like, how about this? How many guys have only like taken 61A and only know Python? Okay, that's a good number of you. Don't worry, Ruby is syntactically, it's very similar. And for those who know, like have taken more classes, know more lower level languages, it's really simple. Like you can probably learn most of this, the syntax. You just took out like 3 hours of your day just to like read through the documentation. That's it. It's a very high level language, which it has a lot of syntactic sugar, or basically they have a lot of shorthand shortcuts for you. And an interesting quote that was written about Ruby is it focuses on humans and not machines. And this was the intent of the person, it was written by a Japanese man who was like, oh, I kind of hate C because I have to allocate all this memory, I have to free up memory. I don't want to deal with none of this, right? I just want a language that might take up a lot of resources on the machine, but as a programmer, I want to enjoy working with it. And the design decision of Ruby on Rails to be written with Ruby made it really popular because like it was just a joy to work with versus like writing code when you try to compile it and it doesn't compile. Like you have to declare the types of your variables in Java, all that kind of stuff you could avoid with Ruby. And an interesting thing about Ruby is its ability to do metaprogramming. How many of you guys actually know what metaprogramming is? Okay, that's a few of you. Just as a quick explanation, what metaprogramming is like a code's ability to change at runtime. I won't get into much detail about this right now, but it basically gives all the magic effects Ruby on Rails has. At the very beginning, I'm just gonna let you know right now, this is like a large overview of it. When we first get into Ruby on Rails, a lot of magic's gonna seem like, it looks like a lot of magic's happening because you write one line of code and it does like a billion things. You're just like, what just happened? And all its ability to do that relies on its ability to do metaprogramming. So Rails in itself is the framework that we're using. The which one do I call it? It runs like the theory behind its design is something called convention over configuration. Basically, what this means is Rails is going to make a lot of assumptions for you, and it's going to assume that you're going to do it in a very certain way. And when you follow that certain way, you get to write a lot less lines of code. Your code just a lot clearer, and like features that you want to make on your website, you can make like that. Some people, a lot of programmers actually like the reverse, where they actually like configuring everything to know what's going on. But it's for a web application, there's so many moving parts that due to this kind of design choice, this architecture choice about Rails, this became very popular. How many people here know what the design or like the ideology of MVC? Does anybody actually want to volunteer to explain what that is? Or all right, go.
So MVC, so the model where you find your data and how it interacts with the view. The view where it's actually generated and then the HTML was actually actualized. The controller controls that, brings the table depending on what framework you're in. The controller controls that and interact with the view. The user push requests and that kind of thing.
Yes, that's exactly it. That's nailed it right on the head. So just a little bit more about Rails is that what makes it popular, like along with how easy it is to write code in Ruby, and with this convention over configuration kind of mindset built into the framework, it's very easy to get something up and running. Like a lot of startups use Ruby on Rails because they know that they could build like features on the website way faster than they could using another framework. That being said, Ruby on Rails basically also, since it's a whole framework, it's not like super optimized, so you won't have like the fastest responses or the fastest website. But a lot of startups' biggest concern is not whether they can load 200 milliseconds faster. It's more about, will people use their product and stuff like that. So it's really good for basically like, oh, I need a feature. I want to see if there's a market fit. Will people actually like what I'm making? Use Ruby on Rails. Another really great thing about Rails is it has a huge community. It's been out for about 10 years. I believe it came out in 2005. Correct me if I'm wrong, anybody. But when it first came out, it got a lot of traction. People really liked it. So what that means is people built a lot of libraries that work with Ruby on Rails. So you don't have to worry about stuff like, oh, crypto or worrying how to secure a database, making user signups. There are plenty of other libraries that people use that you can just plug into your Rails app. It starts working immediately. Then you get to focus, instead of focusing on like nitty-gritty code, you could focus more on like, just making holistic features that people use. So I already asked somebody in the crowd, good job by the way, of what like MVC is, and I just got a few slides just to really go over it. So a model is basically what we use to interact with our database. In the Rails framework, a model represents a table. Wait, actually a quick poll. Who knows what a table is or like has taken like CS 186? And who has no clue what I just said? All right, okay. So a table is just basically a way to store data. A very easy way to think about this is pretend a table is a CSV file on your computer. I don't know if, I would assume a lot of you have worked with Excel sheets. Just pretend like a database table is an Excel sheet. There are names on each of the columns and data in each row. What a model is in Ruby on Rails is the layer that we work with when we want to access that data. So when we have a model, if we want to like update data on our CSV file or table, or we just want to grab data from it, we do it at the model level. The view like I said, is just basically what actually appears up to the users. Your Rails app will basically figure out how to generate the view, and it'll just send your browser HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that the user will use to display the data. And finally, the controller is what connects the models and the views. Every time you make a request, or basically every time you go to facebook.com, right, and you hit enter, your browser fires off a request to Facebook server, right? And assuming that they use an MVC model, this is what's happening. Your request basically calls a controller function. A controller function will go use the models to grab data from their database, or basically look in a CSV file and grab that information, right? And what it will do is use that information and then create a view with it, which basically is the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript that is sent to your browser in the end. Here is an image. I don't know if you can all see it, and just so you guys know, I will post these slides after class, so you don't have to copy it word by word. If you just, they'll be up there, so you don't have to worry about that. But this image represents how the MVC model works from every time you make a request. So right here is your browser. This Firefox. I don't know how many of you actually use Firefox, so you probably use Chrome. Doesn't matter. They all work generally about the same. So when you go to your browser, you'll enter a URL, right? And when you press enter, your browser basically fires off like a request, like a GET request. What happens is that request will figure out how to find, like if we use this example, Facebook as an example, we'll find Facebook servers. And Facebook servers will get a request that says, hey, this browser wants this piece of information, right? And the router will figure out which controller to send this request to. The controller will then say, okay, I got this request, right? This request is telling me to do a certain set of actions. I'll go to my database, which is this part right here. I'll go to, or I'll basically call a model, which will go to my database and retrieve the information I need, take it all the way back to my controller. And then my controller will generate a view by going to the views file, right? It goes to the views file, creates a view, basically compiles HTML, CSS, JavaScript all together, and finally the controller says, okay, I have this package of like data ready, and I'm gonna send it back all the way to your browser. Rails does all those things for you, and you don't need to worry about how all those really work, but that's just the large general idea of it. And it's okay if this is like actually really overwhelming right now, because this is just gonna be this is just our broad overview of what we're gonna do during this class. We'll go into details about each in the following lectures. And basically the goals of this course is to learn the basic structures of web applications. So like you'll probably learn a little bit of web design theory that's not only applicable to Rails, but also other frameworks. You'll learn the tool Rails, and hopefully you'll actually get other tools that you'll use in the industry for your full-time work or your next internship or your next startup that you find. I don't know. Hopefully it'll be very useful for you. Some of the tools we'll be using is Git. Who here doesn't know Git? Okay, Sam's a liar, but what you want to call it? So before, when we first taught this class, none of the CS courses used Git, so we like took out a lecture to do that. But it seems everybody here is a master version control, so we don't have to worry about that. The next tool that I'm going to talk about very briefly is RVM, or basically a way to manage your Ruby. So Ruby as a language has been evolving. There's many versions that have come out, and sometimes when a new version comes out, things that were written on the old version don't work on the new version. So what RVM allows you to do is manage each version. So if you work on one Rails project that's using like version 1.93, you could easily switch to another project that's using version 2.20 using RVM. And we'll talk about installing that all later. And to try to stop bombarding you with information about basically how to make a website, right here, I don't know if you could read this, it's kind of dark, but if you go to bit.ly/Rails Decal Fall 2015, there's our syllabus. Basically, it provides the grade. The most important thing that you guys probably care about is grade breakdown, which I put on this slide. So attendance is 20% of your grade. And this first one, we're not counting the first attendance, but from now on, we'll be checking in your attendance through our website. If you have 0-1 absences, you still take full credit. So if you just like, screw this class, I'm gonna go out tonight, you'll still get full credit. If you have 2 absences, we'll deduct 10 points. 3 absences, you'll lose all 20 of those percentages. But if you get 4 or more, it counts as a no pass. So you have to really watch out for that. If you have something like, oh, I have a final, or sorry, a midterm or something, like that night, just send us an email and then we could count you in for that lecture. Homework is 20% of your grade. There will be a few homework assignments across the year. Homework is just a small part. You get credit for pretty much trying. So hopefully it won't be too stressful for you guys. We have 2 projects. One is individual, one is group. We have one individual project that will, after we kind of cover most of this like model view controller or how to basically make most of an app, we'll put you on an individual project where you basically figure out how to connect all the ideas we taught together into one thing. Usually it's a Pokemon app actually. So if you like Pokemon, it'll be kind of fun. And your second project is a group project, which is where most of your grade is 35%. Usually we have groups of size 3, and we will have a more specific rubric coming out later in the semester. But if you want to start finding your 2 other friends now, feel free to. And a passing grade in this class is 70% or more. So yeah. Advice before we begin. I know like it's going to be a lot of knowledge because learning how to make a web application isn't trivial. There's a good amount of stuff that you need to learn, but we're all here to help you. All the TAs are. We don't get paid for this. We do this for free. I don't know, just because I guess we all like teaching, we just all want to help you guys out and just learn a useful skill. We don't have concrete office hours yet, but once they're all finalized, I'll post them up on the Piazza. Next piece of advice that's useful throughout probably all your CS classes and anytime you want to get into any sort of software development is Google your bugs. This might sound kind of silly, but it's an actual skill. I've gotten a lot better at Googling bugs over the last 2 years. And as you try that skill more and more, you basically know what key terms to actually search from your bug and get an answer out of. And like basically most of my learning comes from Stack Overflow. Like all my Rails pretty much came from Stack Overflow of me like breaking like everything. I just wanted to take some time out to introduce our TAs. First we got Junyu, who is right in the front. He's a junior CS major and his office hours are Thursdays from 12:30 to 1:30, but he's not sure where they'll be yet. Nick is in the back. Say hi, everybody. Nick is a junior CS major. About both of these 2 were actually took the Rails decal the first semester it was out, so they got the worst experience, and they decided to stay. So hopefully that's a good sign. Next we got Erica. Are you here, Erica? Okay, I actually need glasses and I don't wear them, so I can't really see you guys in the back. Yeah, so there's Erica. She's in the back. She took the Rails decal 2 semesters ago. She took it, wait. Yeah, no, you took it the first semester too. I lied. So she actually stayed too, which is awesome. She's trying to finalize her class schedule to figure out her office hours. Next, we got Charles, who's sitting right there. Charles is a junior EECS major. He's also a TA for 169, so he probably knows a lot more about Rails than I do. Next, we got May, who's also hiding in the back too. She took the class last semester, so she got a slightly better experience. And Warren, here in the front, he's a sophomore CS major, and he also took this class last semester. His office hours are between 2 and 3 Thursdays, and I don't think we have a room finalized or a place finalized. Next, we have Sam. He's up here. He's a junior EECS major, and he's actually the instructor for the first semester. So he's also a 169 TA too, so he knows everything about Rails too. His office hours are from 3 to 5 on Mondays at 411 Soda. And here's me about myself. I'm a senior CS major, and I'll have my office hours from 1 to 2 p.m. on Fridays at Cafe Strada. Just to note, I won't have mine tomorrow though. I'll be starting my office hours next week. This is the last slide that will appear at the end, but we're actually going to have a little introduction to Ruby syntax. Everybody welcome Charles up. And Ruby Mine Award. Sorry about that. Can you guys hear me back there? Are we good? Thumbs up, down. We good? Okay. So hey guys, I'm Charles, one of the TAs for this course. And so right now we're just gonna have a little presentation on Ruby. So basically, to start writing Ruby on Rails, you first need to know a little bit of Ruby. And so hopefully this lecture will give you kind of a baseline about the different parts of it. We're not going to go super in depth. If you want to do that, the documentation is always there. You can always ask one of us if you ever get stuck with anything. So the homework actually will be, this week will be just a basic intro to Ruby, kind of like the stuff we're going to be covering in class. So anyways, so a quick poll. How many guys, let's see how familiar you guys are with Ruby. So who only knows about the precious gem and not the language? Okay. Who has like seen or dabbled in Ruby before? All right, less. Who has used Ruby in smaller projects? Awesome. And who is a Ruby god? All right. Okay, let's keep going. So basically, here are some like basic things about Ruby. First of all, everything is an object. So in Java, you have like primitives like booleans and ints, and you really can't. They don't really have any. They're not actually objects, and you can't call methods on them. However, in Ruby, everything is an object. So you can call like one.times. You can say like one.week. There's like you can ask true what class it is, and it'll say boolean. Also, there's such thing. So Ruby has this thing called implicit returns, where usually most methods that you're used to have return statements. But in Ruby, if you don't have a return statement in your method, it'll evaluate the last line and return that implicitly. So you don't actually have to declare a return value. So if you look at the first one. The first method, hello, it says return 5, and then the second one just says 5. But when you call this in the console, they'll both run and print the same result. Also, if you have just like, if you don't have any nested method declarations in Ruby, you can also omit parentheses. So if you see our hello method call, you can see that I've taken out the parentheses. But if you have nested method calls, this isn't really possible because it's not
So because Ruby doesn't really know like what is the method and which one is the argument. So the first one at the bottom is an invalid method call, whereas the second one is. Also, naming conventions. In Ruby, every variable should be a snake case, and what that is basically if you have a variable, each word should be separated by an underscore, and all should be lowercase. Whereas with camel case, each word should have its first letter capitalized except for the first word or first letter. So if you look at the code box over there, you can see that our variables are snake case, but our classes are camel case. So that's a little bit kind of confusing at first, but you'll get used to it. This is all part of like the convention over configuration principle, where we name everything a specific way. So in Ruby also, there's no type declaration, so you can just assign any, you don't have to declare like an integer or a string or stuff like that. So here are little bits about different parts of the Ruby library. So strings, in most languages like Java, to kind of concatenate strings or to like combine strings, you have to actually like use a plus sign. So you have to do like hello string plus like world string, and it gives you the result. Whereas in Ruby, actually, you can use this hash syntax right here, where you can just put in hash brackets, and you can actually evaluate variables inside of strings. So this here we assign A to hello and B to world, and then C is actually a combination of both of them, and they're both evaluated inside of the hash syntax. And so when you do put C, which is how you print things in Ruby, it prints out hello world. Same thing. Here's another like a small cool thing about Ruby is that to append to a current string, you can just do these two less than signs to append a string to another. So if we take this variable A, which is assigned to hello, and when we add world to it, and when we print it, it says hello world. And for substrings, it's kind of, you might be familiar with this. It looks kind of like Python, but instead of like the colons, we use dots. So the first one is, so we have this variable hello world, and if we want to get like a substring, this first one is a inclusive substring, so it goes from index 1 to 2, whereas the second one with 3 dots is a exclusive range. So it only gets the letter at index 1. So Booleans, everything in Ruby is true except for nil and false. So if you look at our first code box, you can see that it prints true because hello evaluates to true. Whereas at the bottom, when we put in nil, it prints out nothing. So there's two ways to do kind of control statements. There's if and unless. And so basically unless is syntactic sugar for like not. So it's like if not something, you use unless instead. So here are arrays. So in our first code box, you can see that that we have an array assigned to 1, 2, 3. It's kind of, it looks like Python pretty much. To get the first element, you can call a dot first, which is just syntactic sugar for like getting like a with like the bracket 0 in Python. And you can also call a dot last. So the last statement over here at the bottom is pretty much the same thing as the first one. And if you want to declare like an array, like an array of size 3 with everything initialized to 0, you can also use the initializer functions. But we'll get back to that later. We'll get back to like different array methods later on. So hashes are like Python dictionaries. There's 3 different ways to declare hashes, and each of them. So the first 2 are actually the same. We'll talk about what these weird symbols are later. But this is the first one and the last one are not the same. The first code box and the third code box are not the same. But we'll talk about that later. So symbols are basically what you saw earlier over here. So these things are called symbols. And what they are basically kind of like strings, but not really. So they don't actually have any string methods, but you declare them basically by putting a colon in front of like a string or just a variable. So if you do like puts a, which prints it, you'll print out like hello world. Whereas if you just type in a, you'll get the symbol hello world. And as you can see from the last statement, they're actually not the same. And they can't be mutated. So if you try to assign a symbol to like a number, you'll basically get a syntax error telling you that you really can't do that, because once you've declared it, you can't change it. So here is a little bit about classes and methods. Howard will go into more detail next week in his second lecture about Ruby. But basically, this is how you declare a class. So you just declare a class like my class. And if you want to inherit from like a parent class, you just do a less than sign, and then you state the parent class. So to declare class level methods, you define the method with a self dot whatever name the method is. And then if you just want an instance method, you just declare like a regular method. And to make your methods private and protected, you basically just declare private, and everything under it will be private until like you declare a different type of method, which is protected. So everything under here will be protected, and everything above it will be private because it's under it. So here's like in the console, if you call like my class.class method, it'll call this method right here, and it'll print this is a class method. Whereas if you initialize the class and then you call it on the instance, you'll get the argument back because we pass in hello here. Also in Ruby, what's awesome is that you can have default arguments. So basically if I call like instance method with no arguments, the method will say, hey, let's look at argument. Arg, and it'll say, oh, it looks like we've already defined a default value for the method, and we'll replace that. We'll use that instead. So here if you call it with no arguments, it'll print out default. So here's some control like statements. Here is like an example of a if statement. Basically, Ruby is not. It like depends on like end where you place the end statement. So Python is like indent-based language. So like each control statement has to be indented or nested one level. But in Ruby, it doesn't matter about like indentation as long as you place the end statement in the right places. So for example, this statement, like if true, else if, else, and then when you put the end, it ends that entire block. So in Python, this is how you would kind of, if you wanted to print an element, print all the elements in a list, you basically write this. Like you declare the list and you would iterate over every element in the list. Whereas in Ruby, to do the same thing, we pass in things called lambda. Pass in things called lambda statements. So who has taken, like has anyone here not heard of like lambda expressions? Or doesn't know what they are? Okay, so basically this block right here is a lambda expression, which is invoked. So each one of these elements in the array has this function invoked, and basically it'll print the element in the console, each one of these. And if you want it like multi-line, you just declare, you put do right here, and then you do the same, you put the same thing here, and you make sure that you end your block statement with an end statement to let Ruby know that, hey, like I'm done using this, I'm finished defining my block statement. So yeah, so this is kind of what I talked about before. This is an example of a lambda expression in Python. If you want to check if a variable is divisible by 3, you can use this lambda statement. So this block statement would be equal to this one. So this block in Ruby would be equal to this lambda statement in Python. So here are some other very useful blocks in Ruby. This first one is an example of a map function. So basically we'll take every element of this array, 1, 2, 3, and basically multiply it by 2 and then return the resulting array. So you can see that it prints out 2, 4, 6. You can also, like before when you saw like 1 dot times, you can actually, to do something 3 times, you would do like 3 dot times, and then you could do puts 5, and it would like print 5 3 times. For the select statement, you could, if you want to select only elements that are divisible by 2, you would write this, and you could, it'll return like it'll return an array of with just 2 in it. Any is to check if any element in this array matches this expression that we put it in. So this one checks if any element in our array is divisible by 2, which it is because there's a 2, and that evaluates to true. And the last one, max by, basically returns the max element based on the parameter you put in, which is just the number itself in here. And if you want to see a lot more really cool methods that you can do on different classes, just check out the Ruby enumerable documentation. And yeah, I'll pass it back to Howard. He'll talk more about like what's going to happen with the setup for Rails, because this usually takes the rest of the lab to do. Okay.
All right, I guess first I want to start off with, what are your questions? Go ahead. Say again? Can I talk about, can we keep it to the like outside logistics, like for now? I can get back to it after this, but does anybody have immediate questions about what we talked about? Yeah. Loops. Okay. So I'm assuming all of you have done loops in other languages, right? Okay. So I guess I'll just slowly go over loops in Ruby on Rails. I'm gonna quickly attach this to my PowerPoint. Would it be really helpful if you guys just receive like a live demonstration of like me just coding with Ruby right now? Okay. So first, I'm going to find my terminal, make this full screen, and hopefully that's big enough for you guys that can read it in the back. All right. So basically, to access your Ruby interpreter, I don't know if this works on Windows because I only coded on a Mac, but if you have a Mac, I'm pretty sure this will work. You just type in IRB. You open up your Ruby interpreter, IRB interpreter Ruby, and towards the left just says version number 2.20. And yeah, so this is where we start. So I guess let's first start, I guess, with the concept that there's no primitives in, what Charles was saying earlier, there's no primitives in Ruby, everything is an object. So you literally have functions on numbers like 6.gcd, greatest common denominator, I don't know, 2, it returns you that. For strings, for example, calling something called like dot upcase returns you all caps. And I believe if you do string an integer .to_s, which we're gonna call it, it returns you the string version of number. Okay. All right, yeah. Okay. Okay, no, that's a perfect question. So what Charles was saying earlier was that Ruby, you could actually omit the parentheses. So upcase is a function, right? I'm just gonna go back up to the line I wrote like this, dot upcase. I could actually just do this open close parentheses is actually implicitly applied. And something interesting about Ruby is that what Charles was saying earlier is that it does this for even if you have, as long as you don't have nested functions, if you do GCD no parentheses and just enter 2 right next to it, it actually calls that on 2. And if you're not used to this, you're probably going to think this is really stupid. But as I'm one of those people who, like, actually when I first saw this, like, oh, that's the stupidest thing ever. When I looked at Ruby code, I had no idea what was going on because I didn't know that. Like, when I read stuff on Stack Overflow, I was so confused because I didn't know that, they have implicit parentheses like this or implicit function calls. You just literally have to do, I'm going to show another example real quick if this is helpful. So if I define a function called foo, right? And it takes 2 arguments, A and B. And I could return A plus B. And the thing about Ruby is you have to end every kind of block. So this function defining block, I have to call end on it, right? Now I have a function called foo in my global scope. I could call foo like this, 1, 2. Or I could call foo without the parentheses, and it actually will just do that. I believe this is called poetry mode. People in the Ruby community like this because it allows you to read things like English. Like when you read through a line, it'll say whatever, no parentheses on this thing, and it just reads like English, and people really like that. Okay, so the question you originally had was the for loop, right? Which is a very good question. So I'm going to find R, which is an array, right? And I'll actually give it this. 1, 2, 3. An array of the strings 1, 2, and 3, right? So let's say I want to print out each of these strings with a for loop. Normally in Python, I believe it's like for like I in R colon. I haven't actually done Python for a while, so kind of totally forgot, but this is the way we do it in Ruby. So we do r.each, right? I don't know if you have taken, well, for those who have taken 61A, at least when I took it, towards the end of class, you learned the concept of what an enumerable is. And basically r.each, you could call each on anything that's enumerable or anything that's could be, you have individual items that are listed. R.each, so an array is enumerable. It inherits from an enumerable class. Array.each do, I'm going to type in str. So now I've entered my, like, the logic inside my for loop. Array.each does the enumerable. When I call do, I'm saying I'm about to pass you a code block. Run this piece of code on this array. And then I do bars, str bar. Everything inside that bar is basically the name is, I say that the variable str will equal each individual element as I go through it. So then within this for loop, right, I'm going to say puts str, right? And when I press end, it's going to run. So can anybody tell me what this is about to print? 1, 2, 3. Okay. That's right. It's oh wait, yeah. So it prints 1, new line, then 2, then 3, and finally at the end of the block, it'll just return the array. So you can just do logic at the end of this array.each, you get the array back. So can anybody, what should I call it? Another thing about what you could do with arrays that was in one of Charles' slides is you could basically, arrays have a bunch of methods on it, right? Let's say you don't want to pass it. You think this .each thing takes too many lines or something, right? You could and you just want to, you could do this like putting each string in one line by doing something called array. Every array object has a map function. And a map function, if you remember, I don't know if they changed 61A a lot or not, but basically you just map like a procedure or a function on every element of an array. So array.map, you could just pass it. Now I'm just going to name my local variable A, right? and just return a dot to I. Does anyone remember from earlier what does to I do? Yeah, to integer, exactly. So you see how this new array that got returned isn't like the same as the one I defined above. The one I defined above has quotes around it. These are, what should we call it? Those are strings, these are integers. They're two different object types. When you add can anyone actually tell me what happens if I do 1 plus 2? Yeah, exactly. I heard a bunch of people say 12. But, so I don't know if that was too easy, but yeah, and then if I just leave them as integers, what does it give me? 3. Okay, good. I guess any more questions about some of the top? Yes.
So if you wanted to print out like
1, 2, 3 on the same line. I mean, let's see. So, I mean, this is what I would do. There might be some magic syntactic sugar around it, but then I would just actually just define like an output. Wait, say that again? Print. So if I try to run like print 5, and prints 5. Oh, I see what you're saying. Well, we got a Ruby god in the classroom. So yeah, wait, let me try that actually. Like, honestly, I don't know everything there is to know about Ruby on Rails. Honestly, a lot of you guys in this class are probably a lot smarter than me. So I could be wrong a lot, but it seems like prints actually work. So if you do array at each, do 1 or I, right? So same thing, array is enumerable dot each, basically go through each one, and within the scope of this block, each element is I. I just do print I am. It does 1, 2, 3. That's actually right. I've learned something new today. When I actually typed in print, I was like, oh, I don't think there's a print, but I was totally wrong. But yeah, that's actually really cool. Any more questions? Yeah. Oh, because whenever you do array.each, do whatever end, that whole block evaluates to something, and it evaluates to the array it just ran on. Yeah. Yes. Wait, sorry, repeat that?
for example, I think it would be like for I in range length of 8, we only do something like that in
How do I do something like that in Ruby? Let's see, wait. Is this something I do? Oh, whoops. Each do puts high. At each for fixed noun. Okay, that's not working. So for the X range thing, I used to know how to do that. I actually probably have to pull out the Google search. I'm gonna hit you with the Google search. Put in parentheses. Okay, Charles is a genius. He got this. So then we got 1. I just do like 5, right? Then dot each. Oh, I was supposed to surround my original. Oh, okay. I see why Rails is confused. Dot each do I print I end. So it does go through each one. It prints 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Then it returns the range object that I have, 1 through 5. It's like the same thing that comes out of X range in theory. Any more syntax questions? just to make sure, just to go over one last thing before I stop this. Something you could also do in Ruby is, like we were talking about earlier, is defining classes. So like, let's say we could define a class foo, right? To define what we call a class method, you just do define self dot something. So just remember there's a self, it's in the slides if you want to go back to it, but self dot bar takes in a, right? You return a plus 2, or like a, yeah, a plus 2. You end the function, end it. So now you have the class foo is defined in your global namespace. And when you call dot bar, it's passing in 5, it will return you 7. That will be useful for your first homework assignment. And yeah, just a quick overview. Since you all, wait, I said, oh yeah, go. Root. How do I run it in a terminal? Sure, I'm gonna just go to, this is the repo for your homework, but I'm just gonna do like, I'm just gonna pop open a file like hi.rb. I'm just gonna put puts 5. And if you do Ruby, you could do Ruby hi.rb and it'll run the file. But if you want to run the file with your interpreter still open, then you just do irb hi.rb. So yeah. So normally we have more time to do this, but where are my slides? Oh, okay, found them. Okay, so last thing is we just talked a lot about Ruby. Your first homework assignment will just will be like 3 really pretty simple problems, plus a slightly more involved problem where you probably will have to read the documentation on the class. And we link the documentation in the repo. Wait, do all of you guys know what GitHub is? Yeah, okay, perfect. So it's in the README. In one of the hints, we'll point you to documentation that you need to read for a question. And the reason why we did that is because a lot of web development you'll find later is reading documentation on how to use a certain library or something. And if you want to find the assignments, you could just go to the Rails Decal website, click assignments, and homework 1's up there for you guys. Just click on here. It's due next Friday. Generally, our homeworks we'll try to release it before then, but they'll be released by the Friday of the week. And they'll be due the following Friday at 11:59 p.m. So you have like a whole week to do it. Just link to the assignment. It's a GitHub repo. You just git clone this, and the instructions are all here. So yeah, that's your homework. I'll post it on Piazza too with a lot of information from the first day after this class is over. And very last thing is actually to get started on installing Rails. This process hopefully will run really smoothly, but sometimes it won't. So if you're a Mac or Linux user, right, you have the option to do manual setup or just directly install Rails into your system. To get our instructions on how to install it, go to bit.ly/Rails-decal-manual setup. I'm gonna try to make this bigger. Can I make this bigger? No, this is not working for me. But that's the link up there. You could just feel free to walk up here and look at it. If you're using a Windows or you just want to use a virtual machine, we have a virtual machine setup that the instructions for it are bit.ly/Rails-decal-vm-setup. So both both bit.ly links are the same except the word decal. I mean, sorry, except one one's manual and the other one's VM. And we make Windows computers do the VM because natively Rails sometimes breaks a lot on Windows, and it's a really big pain that we believe that just setting up a VM would be a lot easier for you. Yeah, sorry. Wait, say again? Okay, so do you know what like a virtual machine is, or is it just like some random word I'm just spouting out? Okay, so a virtual machine is basically like a fake computer that runs on top of your computer. And this virtual machine that we're trying to get you set up with is going to fake a computer with Linux on it, so that Rails plays a lot better with the Linux operating system than it does with Windows. And a native install or like the manual installation is basically just installing Rails directly onto your computer and running through its own its own original operating system. If you're doing if you have Mac or Linux, I mean, like in theory, both of them should work out the same. That being said, since I'm a Mac owner myself, I've installed it natively. I don't know too much about the virtual machine. So if you have a Mac, I personally would prefer it if you download it manually. That's all I really have to say about that topic. If you need any help, if something's going wrong on this installation, the TA should be walking around, or you can find them if you remember their faces. Just raise your hand and we'll try to come to you. And for those who think that they'll probably have no problem installing this, you feel free, to go home. I know this class really runs late. We tried to get an earlier time, but this was the only, for this class size, this was the only room they could give us at this hour. So yeah, it's not like I like being here at 10. It's just what the department gave us to work with. So yeah. And for those who had the enrollment questions, just come up to me, right? Or if you could install first and then talk to me later. I'll be here until the last person leaves. So yeah. Oh, one last thing. If you just feel like you just need to go right now, but you need help, just come to our office hours next week, or when you post on Piazza, post as much information as you can about your errors. And yeah, we'll try to have everything ready by next week. Hi.
So I found out I don't think I'm on the Piazza. So.
Okay. Yes. Okay. I'm gonna take this out. You're not on the Piazza. Okay. Can I get your name and your email?
Okay. Name Genji, Genji.
Genji.
Yeah. And the last name N-O.
Can I just get your email?
Oh, okay. Genji.noguchi. So his first name dot.
Okay, sorry. Genji dot
N-O.
N-O.
G-U.
G-U.
C-H-I.
C-H-I.
Perfect.
Okay. This is Berkeley then, I'm assuming. Yeah, okay. At Berkeley.edu, but you're already in the class, I'm assuming. You're just not in the Piazza. Okay, yeah. Okay, perfect. I'll just add you there tonight. Okay.
Hey, if I'm already in the class, how do I get added to the wait list?
How you get added to the wait list? And I remember you're also wait list. Wait, can you ask, how many of you guys are for the wait list? For you want to get on the wait list? Okay, I want to do the wait list last because I want to get the people who are enrolled already, who's having code problems. Wait, who has a code but it's not working? It's 1, 2, 3. Okay, did all of you, okay, can you three come up, I guess, first? And I just want to deal with all three of these at the same time.
Yeah, I think I have like a lower division code.
Okay, you have a lower
Yeah,
division
same.
code. Did you sign up as a lower division?
I don't think so.
Okay.
I mean, I could have
Well,
mistakenly, but I'm not.
okay. So, what's your email?
MGLEIT
MGLIT
at Berkeley.
Well, I just realized I already have all your guys' emails. I just need the name. But okay, that's fine. And what's your name?
David, how are you?
LIU David Lee. Okay, I'll find your email from the database and
It should be like,
yeah. And who is the third person? Okay.
You see my name, right? Win, W-I-N-N.
WINN.
Yeah, last name C-U-I.
CUI. Okay. And sorry.
Or my name, right?
Yeah.
Hakoba is spelled like Jacob with an L at the end.
It's spelled like Jacob, but what?
It has an L at the end.
As in, oh, okay.
And Sternberg, STERN.
I'm gonna assume that that's a very original name, and you're the only one in our class, so I could find you. Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
Problem, most likely.
So U4. I'm assuming all of you have the lower division code, but it says you're in the upper division.
It just says something about
Okay, like you can't get in. Okay.
Yeah, so
Okay. All right.
Also, like, can I just give you my email because I feel like it's kind of a generic name.
Okay. Yeah. That's actually.
7david12 LIU at Gmail.
Do you want to just type it in?
what's the word?
Okay. Sorry. I've been really swamped within the last week. I'm trying to get to the Viatla post, but I've just been a little dying. But okay, I'll get back to you about the upper div one and wait list. How many are there? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay. So right now, for those in the wait list, I would say it's generally good news just because usually a lot of people drop this class pretty soon if they do. And even now, I don't think, so I sent out exactly, I don't know if you know this, but decals are actually divided by upperclassmen and lowerclassmen, and I sent out exactly the number of people that I accepted a certain number, we accepted a certain number of people, and I sent out exactly those numbers, and then some of them can't make it anymore. So if you could just put your emails, and if you're upperclassmen or lowerclassmen on this piece of paper, I'll start actually going through this wait list and then sending you CCNs. Okay? Yeah. And you should definitely you should at least get some confirmation email from me by this weekend. If not, just pester the hell out of me, okay? Okay, for the non-waitlist part.
Oh yeah. I'm gonna receive an email with the CCN.
And it doesn't work because wrong standing?
I think so.
Okay, what's your name?
QINGYU.
Q?
Yeah.
N?
QING.
QIN.
No U.
ING.
YU.
Okay.
Yeah, that's me.
Okay. I will find your email and send you the upper division one.
Okay.
Okay.
That's a upper division problem.
Yeah, so basically the way they do decals or the department of decals is they have a separate CCN for those who have less than enough units to be a junior and those who have more. This problem comes up every semester where I think I'm a sophomore but turns out I have enough units to be a junior kind of thing. Yeah. So I'll just send you the upper division one. And you? The same thing?
No. I just the course service, the Piazza.
Okay.
I use a different Piazza.
Okay, so you just want to.
I just want to be added.
Okay, to the Piazza other email. What's your other email?
Banana phone.
Banana, BANANAS. Banana phone. Sorry, I used that song to actually spell banana. Banana phone at Gmail. At Berkeley.edu. It's okay. I actually have a really embarrassing.
I have a professional alias.
Yeah, I have a professional. I totally screwed this up too. When I went to college, it was like a joke. Okay.
So I can add to the class, right?
Yeah, just don't worry about it. There's definitely enough spaces currently in the upper div for people who, like I said, oh, you're in the class to get you moved up. We'll do that first, and then I'll manually process the list after that.
So when can I receive the email?
I'll probably send it before I sleep, so
Okay, cool. Thank you very
hopefully before like 5 a.m. or something.
much. All right.
All right, thank you.
Oh,
Hi.
was that for adding Piazza?
Piazza. Okay, yeah, I have like 3 separate lists going on. Okay. What's your? You want to type? You, yeah, just type it in.
Is this by standing?
It's
I'm a sophomore.
you have. It's by standing. So if you have enough units to be a junior, whatever says your total bears level is, that's what you are. Don't worry, it's really confusing. A lot of people like. Yeah, no, it's just generally a really big problem actually. Before we didn't even ask for standing, we just asked for year. So we could only like, for most of the sophomores, they don't realize, like, we couldn't tell if they're juniors or not. That's why we added in new questions like, oh, what's your standing? But some people like, but if you've never taken a decal, you probably actually have like no idea what that is. And it's, well, I'm a sophomore lower. Just, yeah, don't worry about it. I'm pretty sure everybody who has ever been on the wait list has gotten in previous semesters. So, yeah.
I'm not even on the list because I just heard about this decal like after the app deadline.
Did you email us about? Okay. Did I not send you anything back? I saw it, and I was gonna answer it like when I did all this stuff tonight.
Is there any way?
Yeah, you could literally just add yourself at the end of this. Yeah.
So once we do this, we have to wait to get on the class also.
Oh no, I could just add you to the Piazza. If people want to audit the class and just want to see Piazza notes, I'll add them to Piazza.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So.
Good guy.
Yeah.
Nailed it.
So I'm technically not enrolled in this class. So can I still audit?
Yeah, of course. You like as long as there's open seats, like as long as the people who are actually in the class aren't like sitting on the floor, just come. And, like I guess you can come to office hours too. If as long as like people who are actually in the class just let them ask the questions first. But if it's like totally free, ask as many questions as you want.
The other thing is that I feel like I kinda like already know.
Oh, I mean those get updated.
No, what I mean is that I've already kind of